Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perpetual Chess. My favorite chess tournament of the year, the Chess Olympiad, is almost here. It starts September 11th in Budapest, and we're going to tell you all about it and welcome a great guest, a great returning guest, the three-time British champion, 14-time British Olympiad author and trainer, the legend Grandmaster Jonathan Speelman. So I had a free-flowing conversation where he told a few stories and reflected on this year's field, as well as reflecting on his own Olympiad experiences. So we'll be getting to you to that fun chat with Grandmaster Speelman in a bit. But first, I wanted to go over sort of what I'm excited about with this Olympiad and why this tournament gets me so hype, while some other tournaments maybe kind of blend together at times. But first, I wanted to tell you about a new chess sponsor. So there's an app called Chess Universe. It's a popular chess app from the Google and Google App stores. It features both educational and fun chess features. It's got like a wide range of exercises and caters to a wide range of players. It's got a fun interface that's easy to use. It can match you against opponents of approximately the same strength. And then users can also choose different bots that they want to play against if you prefer to play against bots or if you like to mix it up. My favorite features are they've got like puzzle sections of different world champion legends, so you can review the greatest moves of Magnus Carlsen or Bobby Fischer, and the list goes on. So it's a fun way to sort of drill some chess history and learn some chess patterns at the same way. And the best part is that the app is free to try out. So you can try it out for free. And then if you decide to become a Chess Universe VIP, you can unlock more features. So again, the app is called Chess Universe. Check it out, either within Apple or the Google app universe, and let me know what you think. So as for the Olympiad, again, you'll hear Grandmaster Speelman talk all about it, but I did want to highlight 10 stories that I'm particularly excited for. But before that, just a bit more context about the Olympiad. So again, September 11th to 22nd in Budapest, rounds 9 a.m. Eastern time, New York time every day. Obviously in Europe, that means it'll be in the afternoon. There's a rich history with the Olympiad. All the best chess players in the world under one roof, although this year there are some missing, as we'll be discussing. Stars are born there, whether it's like Kramnik in 1992 when he was sort of unexpectedly handpicked by Kasparov, Polgar in 1988, as you'll hear me discuss with Grandmaster Speelman. He was there for that. Abdusattorov was already a rising star a couple years back, but elevated his game and his notoriety to another level. And it seems like there's always stories like that emanating from the Olympiad. It feels differentiated. Obviously, it being the Chess Olympics, you playing side by side with your countrymen and women is much different than the individual stakes that we're used to. As the stories come out, there's also like, it's a serious tournament, but there's also a fun vibe, a sort of reunion aspect for all of these top players getting together. This year, there's more than 190 teams in the open section, more than 180 teams in the women's section. So yeah, I can't wait. I'll be tuning in. Another thing to highlight is just there's so many games, because there's so many players under one roof. Obviously, as if you've got a favorite opening where you like to see what top players are doing, it's a great way to keep up with the newest developments, the newest theoretical developments. So here's some more storylines. And again, we touched on these with Grandmaster Speelman, so you'll hear his thoughts as well. But I just kind of wanted to highlight them point by point before we get to that. And as always, timestamps of everything discussed are in the description if you're more interested in some topics than others. Number one, Magnus Carlsen playing classical chess. We don't get to see that very often anymore. Who knows how many more times we'll get to see it, period. But he is playing with Norway, and his mere presence elevates Norway to a team that has an outside chance of winning the whole thing, certainly of medaling. I believe that they're the 6th seed going in. So excited to see Magnus in action in Budapest. Number two, England is stronger than they've been in a while. They added Vichigov, of course, who was a Russian player, but spoke out in opposition to the Russian invasion of Ukraine and has since emigrated to England. So you put him with Mickey Adams, David Howell, Gawain Jones, Luke McShane. You've got a really strong team, and I'm excited to see England in action. Another point I wanted to highlight is the women's field is wide open. So India and Georgia, who are, of course, traditional chess powerhouses and women's chess powerhouses, are the top two seeds. But there's a lot of players missing from the women's field in particular. We're not sure why, but four of the top, or at least I'm not sure why, four of the top women Chinese players, Ho Yifan, Zhu Wenjun, Lei Tengjie, and Tan Zhongyi, are all not playing. The Muzichuk sisters are not playing for Ukraine. Humpy Canero is not playing for India. So I think that the result of that will be that it's absolutely anyone's game in the women's section in particular. Over in the open section, I would say it's less anyone's game. The two standout teams are the US and India with absolutely staggering ratings. It's kind of an age versus experience story arc. The US being the ones with the age on their side. They've got Caruana, Wesley So, Dominguez, Aronian, and Ray Robson. Nakamura, of course, is sitting out. And then the Indian team has Iragesi, Gukesh, and Pragananda. Man, what a top three boards. And Vidit, who was just in the candidates and is playing fourth board. And then super solid Hari Krishna as the fifth board / alternate. The way it works, by the way, is you have four people playing every round, but you often bring five. And especially in the early going, when the pairings are often more lopsided, you might see someone like Magnus sit out early on and then get in the action later. And the fifth boards do tend to get a decent amount of action. Those two teams, just my own personal guess, but I'd say they have between them probably over a 50% chance of winning, of taking the gold medal, it being either India or the US, although obviously China being the third team with over 2,700 average FIDE, headlined by Wei Yi and Ding Liren. Funny to me that Ding Liren and Gukesh are both not playing first board, even though they'll be playing for the World Championship. They won't be first boards for their respective countries. A few other missing players to be aware of. Unfortunately, Firouza's not playing. I haven't seen any stated reason. He didn't play the last Olympiad either. So of course he now resides in France and represents France. But big blow to France's medal chances, obviously not having him, especially with what he's doing in the Sinkfield Cup as I record this here on August 27th. As I mentioned, Nakamura not playing. I always miss Hikaru, but as I mentioned to John Speelman, the U.S. has a deep bench, and it's great that Ray Robson's getting a chance as U.S.'s fifth board. But even people like Sam Shanklin and Hans Niemann unable to crack the top five in this case. So the U.S. has more qualified players than they have spots available. Missing team. Of course, with what's, again, aforementioned Russian invasion of Ukraine, there's no Russian team. So that means, of course, that, crowd favorites like Grishuk will not be in action. And they're always a team that's in contention for gold medal or a medal. Also wanted to highlight Hungary's reascendance. Of course, they're the host country. And as we talk about with John, a couple years back, their top native, Richard Rapport, had emigrated to Romania and was playing under the Romanian flag, but they managed to get him back playing where he belongs for Hungary. And the legend Peter Lecoq, we won't be hearing his commentary because he's holding it down on board two for Hungary. As I mentioned, stars are often born at the Olympiad. It's a lot of fun to see people increase their prominence, see people arrive ahead of schedule on the global chess scene. And as we discussed with John, Bodana Sivanathan, the young British phenom, 9-year-old girl who's breaking all kinds of records, will be in action for the women's Olympiad team. So I'm super excited to see what she can do. Also wanted to highlight the Turkish team in the open section. So they've got two otherworldly prodigies on their first three boards. 15-year-old Adiz Gurel, who's been like winning all these bullet brawls and stuff, outdueling Naroditsky and Andrew Tang and Bullet. And then third board, Erdogmus, who recently made headlines for breaking Polgar's record as the highest rated player in history before the age of 13. And that was like a 35-year-old record. And then you have people who we call prodigies, like Vincent Keimer playing first board for Germany. But I mean, at this point, it's almost like he's graduated from that. He's a world-class player, but still I'm sure there will be some epic matchups with him. Last thing I wanted to highlight, just in case it's not clear what we're talking about in the conversation with Jonathan Speelman, I wanted to give a shout out to Jonathan O'Connor, who hipped me to this old documentary that has resurfaced on YouTube called Grandmaster Clash about the British 1988 Olympiad team. It's by an English comedian / presenter named Stephen Fry, who traveled with them to the Olympiad. And it's about a 40-minute kind of behind the scenes look. So definitely got me in the Olympiad spirit, and free to check out on YouTube for anyone that's interested. Last but not least, before we get you to Grandmaster Speelman, of course, wanted to give a shout out to our longtime sponsors, Chessable.com. My course is out, Identifying Critical Moments in Chess. There's going to be a lot of critical moments in this Olympiad, tense moments. And what I tried to do in the course is sort of highlight triggers to look for in your games where there's an elevated chance that sort of the result of the game could be swung. It's primarily geared towards like the 1000 to 1600 level, but it kind of lays out a framework. So I think it could be helpful for trainers as well. And, I've managed to pick my rating up off the ground and make some progress in my own game. And I think some of it's attributable to these ideas. So anyway, and of course, Chessable has a bunch of other courses well worth checking out. Anish Giri and all these Olympiad players, Erwin Lamy representing the Dutch team, and so many more, Wesley So, etc. So, and if you sign up for Chessable Pro, use the link in the description. So without further ado, here's a fun chat with the British legend, Grandmaster Jonathan Speelman. I hope you enjoy it. And we are here with a legendary Olympiad player, 14-time member of England's team. He's also 3-time English champion, a popular author as well. So I am honored to welcome back to the program, Grandmaster Jonathan Speelman. Welcome back, John.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Well, my pleasure. I'm getting excited for the Olympiad. So we're recording this on August 21st. It's still a couple weeks out, so there's not as much material about it yet, but I'm nonetheless, just looking at the rosters gets me excited. But before we get into this year's edition, John, I'd love to hear a few stories and hear you reflect on your own experience. So my first question was, what was your mindset like going into an Olympiad, and how did that compare to a more typical invitational tournament or even like a candidates cycle type match? Like, did it feel more relaxed or was it serious business?
It was serious, but it was also a lot of fun. It's lovely being with everybody. And it is the place where you meet everybody. Everybody is there. And, you play chess with them. You drink with them maybe afterwards. There's the Bermuda party every year, which is still going as far as I know. And, it's just fun. I mean, but it is extremely serious and very, very tense during it. And I loved it, yes. I was sad I knew I was coming to the end of my time when it happened. I could feel I got, not strong enough and I was being supplanted. And obviously you're pleased that there are people who are now better than you in your country. But, I enjoyed it very much while it went on.
And of course, some players of your generation might return as like a trainer or manager. Do you ever consider a role like that?
Well, I have been. I was England women's team captain 3 times, but only once at an Olympiad was it. I was, I think, a European team championship, and where was I? England women's team captain. I was in Iceland. That must have been a European. And somewhere in Georgia there was an Olympiad. And I was that FIDE has a sort of a system for old codgers like myself to go and be captains of countries that might like them. And I was captain of Sri Lanka at one of the Olympiads. That's the last time I've done it.
How does the system for old codgers work? Do you reach out to FIDE? Do they reach out to you?
FIDE It was done by Grivas, I think. He just said, do you? I don't know if he still does it. And would you like? You got in touch, and there were people who they knew who were very well known, and they said, "Did a country want you?" And I did Sri Lanka, which is fine because they spoke very very good English. They were nice people, and we had fun. But we didn't do quite as well as I hoped, but it was fine. It was okay, and I had quite an interesting top board who played quite well. Or was it? No, it wasn't there was one guy who played quite well. The top board was slightly, the move order, the board order was slightly skewed, but we had somebody who got a norm, I think. Certainly nearly got a norm.
Okay,
No, I mean,
but staying at home in London for this edition?
Yeah, I can't really do it now. My eyesight's quite bad now, and I couldn't be a captain. I couldn't see what was going on well enough. So obviously, I'm fine when I'm on a screen, but if I was at a tournament, it would be hard to see what was going on. So no, I couldn't do that.
Okay.
No. It's one of those things, you do and you think, I'm going to do it always. Then you stop and you regret it a bit. And the last couple of times I haven't. Also, all the business, all the drug controls and the metal detectors and things, I know they have to do it, but it's a bit of a pain, actually going through it.
Yeah, traveling is...
Well, it's not so much the traveling,
it can
but
be quite the hassle.
Well, not so much the traveling, but the fact that nowadays you can't have your own pen because it might be a smart pen. Obviously, you can't have phones. That's fair enough.
Right.
Obviously, phones are turned off or they're given handed in or something. But you can't have your own phone. You can't have your own pens. You can't have your own. What else can't you have? Pens and watches. I don't know if you're allowed a stupid watch or not. Some tournaments you are and some you're not. Some they assume that all watches are clever and some watches are more clever than others. And some they admit that a thing like this is not intelligent at all. It's just a watch, which, tells the time. So, all of that stuff is a bit of the last Olympiad, I was with the women. Okay, you're captain, you're there for 5 hours, you're watching these people play, and you need some distraction in between. So first there's a question, are you allowed into the different sections of the tournament? And you have to fiddle around to get in and out. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. And then at one stage they banned all books. Now obviously you don't want to have chess books, but if you want to have something to read, to take your mind off it in between going and checking what your players are doing, then that seems a perfectly reasonable thing. And they actually banned them for a day, and I had to make a big protest with Judith Polgar. She was captain of Hungary, of course. I was England woman. She was, and we made a big fuss pot, and then we were allowed to take our books in, our dangerous science fiction, which was going to tell our players what moves to play. So that I didn't.
Books are necessary.
I found that I was getting old and codgerly, and I'm very happy I don't do it now. But of course it's fun, and I still play in the 4NCL, where we do have occasional metal tests, but they're done very smilingly and nicely. And in the London League, which obviously is just the London League. And possibly, I just noticed yesterday, I hadn't realised I'm still down for my Bundesliga team. I thought I wasn't down anymore. So I might go out to Munich to play at some point this season. I don't know. So I don't play very
okay. Another chess reunion.
Yeah, no, it's nice. It's nice seeing everybody.
I bet. And Jonathan, returning to the topic of when you were an active player for the British Olympiad, so looking at Olympbase, which for those who aren't familiar is a fantastic resource for chess Olympiad history. It looks like the most British Olympiad open appearances is Nigel Short with 17. Right. Mickey Adams was at 16, but since he's on this year's edition, he'll be at 17, and you were at 14. So
right, and how are the other boys doing? I haven't looked there actually. If you can see it, tell me. Well, there's going to be David, Hal, Gawain Jones, and Luke McShane, and the other three. that they're going to be a lot.
Yeah, they have not appeared as many times, but they of course are on this year's edition with Vichigov,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Now, who else is the fifth? Who's the fifth board? Gawain is there, isn't he? Yes.
Vichigov, Howell, Adams, Gawain, Jones, and McShane. So we've got
That's
everyone.
right. So we got, yeah, and of course Matthew Sadler could easily be on the team. I mean, who would not play is very difficult. I mean, I'm a selector of me.
Yeah, it is.
Happily don't have that problem in a way because Matthew obviously is very strong as well, but he doesn't really play. He works and he hasn't played for a long time on the Olympiad. Because when he did, he was magnificent. In Yerevan, he was
Of course.
a monster,
Yeah.
absolute monster.
Yeah. And were you typically doing training camps leading up to the Olympiads?
Not really. They do now, I think, a bit, but no, not then. We weren't very professional. I mean, we had a party before we went. We were sponsored by some city firm, Duncan Laurie. We had a party. We got on a plane. We went to the Olympiad. We played some chess and we came home. And, on the rest days, we tried not to do anything which was too dangerous. Because rest days, David Anderton, of course, was our captain at that time. He's now dead. And we used to do things like go on big walks on the rest day. But you want some stories. I mean, we had the day before the last round in Dubai, when we were fighting for gold with the Russians, with the Soviet Union as it was then, we went on a trip with people from the British Embassy up to the mountains. I mean, they spoke Arabic, which was good, because of course we didn't. We went to the beach, I think, and then we went up in the mountains. And then one of the jeeps broke down, which was very splendid. And so we left the women and children. Well, we left Glenn Fear and his wife because they weren't playing, and tried to get home, and ended up going along a wadi, going back to the city. So, we got lost and got home. And, this was all rather dramatic, really. I mean, so the rest days are always considered to be the most dangerous days of all in the Olympiad because something could happen. But we had a lot of fun.
You alluded to it was.
Yeah.
And do you think today's Olympiads still have that sort of carefree atmosphere, or do you think it's gotten more serious like everything else?
Probably it has, yeah. But I think on rest days, people will do things. It depends where you are, doesn't it? It depends. If you're somewhere nice, you'll do it. I mean, remind me, sorry, I've forgotten at this moment where the Olympiad is this time. It's
Budapest.
Oh, that's right. It's somewhere nice. Yes, do Budapest. Well, obviously in Budapest, people will go and do something nice in the Olympiad, won't they? On the rest days, they'll go.
Yeah, for sure.
They'll certainly go out to nice restaurants. And Budapest is a beautiful city. So they'll probably do some tourism, some people, or some sort of trips and things. If it's somewhere which is quite remote. I mean, when we played in Bled, say, we could still walk around the lake. That was lovely. But there wasn't so much to do as in a big city.
Right.
It depends.
And are your favorite Olympiad memories, are they over the board or away from the board?
Both, I think. Both. I mean, over the board, I played many games. I played some good games, quite a lot of bad games. I mean, my first Olympiad was Malta in 1980, and the food was not very great, and so we started cooking for ourselves. We were in some sort of flats. We had Ray Keane in the team still. He used to flambe bananas, I know. And Mestel and I cooked some veggie food once for these poor people who were denied meat for a night. It was a terrible thing. I was a veggie by then. And Malta was the year when they had the great game. One of the Georgievs against Kasparov is a very famous Olympiad game. Don't know if you know about that game. Basically, Kasparov, there was a vast amount of theory played, and the Bulgarian, who wasn't Kirill Georgiev, I think he was one of the others, got so excited he took his own piece. He played bishop against his own bishop. And there was a tremendous fracas, obviously. Many much screaming people turning up from all over the hall to tell the arbiter what they'd seen from 100 meters away. And eventually it was decided that he had to move the piece that he touched first, which was the piece that was taking his own piece. So he just played the move he was going to. And he eventually beat Gary. And this was a very fine incident.
And Gary must have been pretty young.
Gary was born on 13th of April 63, wasn't he? He was. And so this is in 1980, sometime at the end of the year. I just got my GM title in Maribor, Marburg, whatever you call it, which is a Slovenian city just across the border from Graz. And I got my title a month or so before. But yeah, he was something like, he would have been 17 at the time. So I think he was probably, he beat me in Malta. So I would have been board 4 or 5 or something. I was probably playing board 4. It was my first Olympiad. So it would have had John Nunn and Mestel was probably above me at the time still. You can have a look. You can find in Olympiad base what our board order was.
Yeah. I'll take a quick
I
look.
think I was
And while I do that, so what are your memories of that game with?
Well, it's the first time I played
the game with Kasparov.
Well, I didn't do very well in the opening, and I got splattered, essentially. I had to give up a piece rather early, and I never really got into the game. I mean, I had some games with him where I did later, basically swindling him mostly, and I had the one rapid play game I managed to beat him, which was, again, swindling. But basically, the opening was not my thing, and it wasn't a great thing playing Gary not to have very good openings. Of course, nobody in the world had good openings at that time.
So, John, it looks like you got one individual medal, and was it 4 team medals? Which medal do you remember the most fondly?
Well, I'd forgotten what I got. I thought I got a medal in maybe Novi Sad, one of those. I know we were second in the world. I know we were second in Dubai, and second, I think we got a silver and a bronze in the 1990s. I think one of them, Yerevan, I think we came third behind the US. And everybody was running around the room at the end trying to do the addition because it was the second tiebreak or something. Or it was a Sonneborn Berger. So we were trying to do the arithmetic for that. But, we had some mathematicians. Well, you don't need mathematics. You need sensible levels of arithmetic.
You got John Nunn there. You're well covered.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did maths at university as well. I mean, look, I can do arithmetic. So who's playing this time? Tell me about who's playing.
Yeah, so this year I highlighted a handful of stories that I think will be interesting. Number one, Magnus is playing for Norway, which he has been playing like zero classical chess. So do you think this might be his last Olympiad?
He normally doesn't like the Olympiad very much because nasty people play against him. I mean, Mickey beat him in one Olympiad because he played ridiculously against Michael Adams. And also Sugirov beat him, didn't he? I think. So I thought he didn't like the Olympiad very much. I don't know. I mean, maybe he thinks...
Yeah.
I mean, it's Budapest, which is different, isn't it? If it was Vladivostok, obviously it's not going to be at this point. But if it was somewhere at the end of the earth, he might not want to play. Whereas, you can see in Budapest he could have fun. So that's interesting, yes. And if he wants to, he'll do well, obviously. It's a question if he likes it. Obviously, he won't play in the first round.
Yeah.
He won't play for a couple of rounds. If he plays the strong players, it's okay for him, isn't it? I mean, playing somebody rated much below 2,600, he's on a losing wicket, isn't he? Because somebody rated 2,550 will draw with him sometimes and very, very occasionally beat him. And this wrecks his rating. So Magnus is playing.
Well, they're the sixth. Yeah, and they're the 6th seed this time. They've got
Really very
Johann
good with him.
Sebastian Christensen, Aryan Tari.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Um,
Christensen. It's Christensen.
the top seed is the
So they got Johann Sebastian as Christensen. Is he the guy who used to be
yep.
Greek? There's somebody.
No.
There's a guy who was born in Greenland who I thought played for Denmark rather than Norway, but maybe I've got it wrong. Right.
Yeah, I think that's someone else. Johann Sebastian Christensen is fairly young, in his early 20s, I think, and
Well, if they've got
he's been
another good
around the
player and
Norway.
Parry, then they're starting to be a serious team. You need at least 3 players for the Olympiad.
Yeah.
If you have 2, it's not enough because they have to perform every round, and you have to get lucky somewhere. So
Right.
they're 6 seeds. So who are the top seeds first? China or
Well, the U.S. is the top
course,
seed.
of course
No
the US.
Nakam.
So the US is going to have. Tell me the board order. That's going to be fun.
Sure, it's Caruana,
Yeah.
Wesley So, Dominguez, Aronian, and Ray Robson.
So Nakamura isn't playing.
Right, he's skipping it.
Was there a hoo-ha about that? Should he be? Was he asked or
Not really. He's missed them before, and everyone sort of considers him semi-retired. So I don't think it's any surprise.
He's more
and
of a.
the U.S. has a pretty deep bench.
That is an enormous team.
Yeah.
If it plays at anything like its potential, it's obviously the favourite. So then you've got US.
Well, but listen to India's team, John.
Yeah. Gukesh, Prague.
India's team is Arigasi, Gukesh, Prague, Vidit, and Hari Krishna.
Well, that's not a weak team, is it? And in that order, so Arigasi is playing above Gukesh. Is he playing above him or below him? Do we know? Is that an order or is that just rating order?
I mean, he's listed. Arigasi's the first by rating. Funny trivia fact. Both.
Yeah. He's number 1, number 4 at the moment, isn't he? Actually, if you look on, did you ever go to 2700chess.com?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. If you go to 2700chess.com, then at the moment it goes, I think, Carlsen, Nakamura, somebody Arigasi or Arigasi somebody. Caruana Arigasi. Caruana's quite a lot down after losing to. He'll have gone up a bit after beating Abdusatorov. He was down to 2786 before he beat Abdusatorov yesterday.
Yeah, he's 2791 today.
Right.
But yeah, it's funny to me that neither Gukesh nor Ding Liren is going to be the first board on their team, at least by rating.
Yeah, but
yet they're playing for the World Championship.
Yeah, I don't think you don't have to play in rating order in the Olympiad. That's one of the
right.
You choose.
Do you like that rule?
Yes, I do. I don't think you have to play in rating order. I mean, I think it's rather regimented to have to play in rating order. I mean, I don't think you should have a 2400 on board 1. I think that's pathetic. In a strong team to try to get around. But if people are about the same strength and they choose their board order depending on how they do, that's fine with me. I mean, in the Bundesliga, you have to keep the same order throughout. But say, I said I'm listed in Munich 1836 again, and William Watson is, I think I'm 4, and I'm listed about 13 or something. That doesn't bother me. I'll play board 6 or 7 or something if I play, and that's fine.
So the Chinese team is Wei Yi, Ding Liren, Yu Yang Yi, Bu Zhangji, and Wang Yu. That's the 4th seed.
Yeah.
The Netherlands with Geary, Van Forest, Warmerdam, Erwin Lamy, and Benjamin Bach.
I would say that's a little bit weak.
And I'll read you one more for. You think so?
A little bit weaker than the others, I think. Yeah, I don't know.
And then the Uzbeks, returning champions.
So they've got the
with the same team as last time, Abdusatorov.
So that's 2 Nadirbeks in the top 2 boards. Abdusatorov and the guy.
Yeah, although Yakoboyev is listed 3rd this time.
Right.
Behind Sindarov.
Well, that's a very strong team as well. I don't know the Dutch. I just sort of feel Van Warmerdam and Bock, I think they're good players. I don't know if they're. I mean, the Chinese will be a very strong unit, won't they? And so what are England seeded?
Yeah.
What are England seeded? About 7th or 8th?
England is seeded 7th.
So we're below Who's sixth?
below Norway.
Oh, but you
Yeah.
told me Norway was sixth. So, I mean, it should be close, shouldn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
the USA might run away with it if they get themselves together because they're basically depends, of course, on the matches USA
I would
against
think
China,
I would actually think India is more likely to win than the US just because
but because they're
their
so
top
young
three
and
boards.
strong. Yeah, because they're so
Yeah.
competitive. Yeah, and will be very much a unit.
And do you think that like people like Ivan Sokolov, who managed rather Uzbekistan and now will be managing Romania, and Kramnik apparently is actually now managing Uzbekistan. Do you think it matters who the trainer is
Yes, I think Ivan's a very good
for a team?
trainer. Yeah, the only time I ever played Firouzja, because I went out as basically team captain for half of the World Team Championship in wherever it was in Astana, as it wasn't for a bit and now is. And I was just as a reserve player in case, because there are only four of them, in case somebody got ill. And I ended up playing a single game and getting absolutely splattered by Firouzja because, at first I hadn't played chess. And Ivan was his captain there. He was captain of Iran and gave him good advice. And obviously he was an excellent. Well, I don't know why they haven't got Ivan again for Uzbekistan. I would have thought. I mean, Kramnik will be good,
I
but
get the
yeah,
yeah,
you get
being
the
that it's
impression
Romania that he's captaining, my guess would be he got offered more money.
it's possible. It's possibly got offered more money by
Yeah.
Romania. Who do Romania have? I mean, they don't have Nispianu anymore, do they? Is Nispianu's now German? I think, isn't he?
Yeah, and they lost Rapport, who they briefly had too, because he's returning to play for Hungary.
Is he? Right, so is Rapport?
Yeah,
He's
so
played.
they've got Laco. Yeah, it's
Oh,
Rapport, Laco. Yeah, Laco's playing Sigurov and Gladora.
so Sigurov is playing for Hungary now. No, who's Sigurov?
Yeah,
So, because Sigurov is a Siberian originally,
huh.
but people move around. Of course,
Yeah, and Romania, to answer your question, has Romania has Bogdan Daniel Diak, Shevchenko, Lupulescu, and Nisipianu. So they're not as strong, but
no,
they were spent.
of course, again, lots and lots of Russians have left since the war. Obviously, Shevchenko. Actually,
Yeah,
Shevchenko is Ukrainian, I think. Actually, isn't it? If it's a Czech.
he's Ukrainian. Yeah,
Yeah, but
but
lots of
yeah, no Russia team, of
no,
course.
of course not. But lots of them have left, and we got Vichugov, yes, but obviously Svidler isn't playing for anybody, is he? He's not playing yet. Thought he now lived in Israel. I don't know.
No, he's not.
He's not. No, because the
Yeah,
boys
Israel doesn't have a team either.
doesn't have a team. Is that not? I don't know what
Oh
happened.
no, they do have a team. I'm sorry, but Svidler's not on it.
Right. I wasn't sure. I don't know what chess nationality he has at the moment. I thought he was living there, but
Yeah, Israel was last I checked, but yeah.
I mean, he's in St. Louis at the moment, obviously, with Yasser,
Right.
commentating. But so interesting. I mean, now obviously lots of the boys have left, and they had an open letter. I think they're sort of okay, but must be tough, very very tough for them. An awful thing, really.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's yeah, and of course, there's a few notable absences. Firouzja isn't playing.
Firouzja isn't playing
There's a
for
lot
France.
of all of the top Chinese. What's that?
So Firouzja isn't playing for France. Why is that?
No, he's not. Yeah, he's sitting out again.
Oh, who knows?
No reason has been given that I've found.
No, I mean, obviously they would want him. I assume
Yeah.
he lives in France, doesn't he? Still, as far as I know, I mean,
Yeah.
they arranged these funny tournaments for him before he managed to get into the candidates by playing in a sensible tournament and getting a wonderful result. Yeah. And sorry, you said all the top. You're going to say Chinese.
And then in the yeah, none of them are playing. Like no big surprise that Ho Yifan's not playing, but Zhu Wenjun, Lei Tingzhe, Tan Zhongyi, they're all sitting out. The Muzichuk sisters are sitting out. So
which sisters? Muzichuk.
For Ukraine, the Muzichuk sisters aren't playing.
Really, I wonder
the
why.
women's is actually missing a lot of the top players.
No, I wonder
What's
why.
that?
I mean, the Chinese are they?
Yeah.
When is their World Championship match? I know that the men are supposed to be playing November, December. So Gukesh against Ding or Ding against Gukesh is November, December. I know, but I don't know if the women are playing. I mean, if they're just about to play a World Championship match, you can see they don't want to be playing in the same team necessarily. Certainly not sharing preparation.
Yeah, I don't think the details have been announced. I mean, it's 2025, not 24.
Oh, right.
So you would think they could play, but
enough. But it might have been. Who knows what's happened with the federations and with the fuss pots, and there's always upset about these things.
Yeah,
people falling out with each other and mess about whether they get any conditions and whether they want them or don't want them and all this stuff. So it's some young unknown Chinese team, but still very strong, probably. There must be millions of Chinese who play.
Although they're still the 4 seed.
Yeah. So who are the top seed in the women's then?
And the top seed, India, who do not. Humpy Canero is also sitting out, but they have Dronavili, Vaishali, Divya Deshmukh, Vantika, and Tanya Saktyev. And
that's good. That's a decent,
pretty strong team.
Yeah. Okay. No, it should be a lot of fun, I think. I mean, again, it will be wonderful to watch. But, again, I do it online now.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, actually, in order to watch it is better to be online, actually, isn't it? Physically being there, wandering around, trying to see the games without annoying the players, but being shushed and moved around and, all the fuss.
Right.
And, can you move in and out of the area? Because if you move in and out, are you going to smuggle some important piece of electric device in your, all this stuff? so it's not. So yeah, to watch, much better.
I just noticed, John, they actually do list the captains on the rosters, which I hadn't noticed previously. So to answer your earlier question, the Indian trainer manager is Srinath Narayanan this year.
Fair enough. I mean, again, they'll have a team manager maybe as well as the captain. It's not. You have to have a nominated person who can go in and out.
Right.
But obviously, Anand will be able to go in and out as a celebrity, as a VIP without any problem. And I thought Ramesh will be able to as well. So you have somebody who's designated to sit with the team and check what's going on, and other people wandering around. Yeah, I mean, our captains are William Watson
and
for the blokes, and
yep,
Stuart Conquest for the women.
Okay. And how's the British women's team looking this year?
It's reasonable, I think. It's we got the Badana on bottom board. Did you see that? The little girl, the 9-year-old. Oh, she's been well.
Oh, yeah, she's amazing.
She's fantastic. I coached her for a year, but then I got it was a bit, I don't know, we stopped anyway. I was probably, doing it in person is quite hard for me, so I think they probably want people in person. I haven't done any this year.
Do you know who she's working with now?
Well, I think it's with ECF people. John Ems is one, but I don't know who else. No.
Okay.
And, I mean, she is amazing. She taught herself off the internet about 3 years ago or something, which is extraordinary. It's just funny that people who've learned on the internet are very idiosyncratic. They don't necessarily know the things that people who learned from books, 50 years ago would know, because they'd never met them, encountered something.
Right.
Whereas, some things they can do amazingly. She's fantastic at some endings, especially for a young child.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing I noticed in looking at the rosters of both the Open and the women's section. The Open, a lot of the top young juniors don't make the cut. They don't end up playing. but with the top young female players, they often are able to find their
Yeah,
way onto the team.
yeah. Maybe there aren't so many strong women players as strong men players still, or maybe there's more of an effort
Yeah.
to promote them. If you got a lot of people rated about the same, somebody who's much younger, then certainly as long as they can cope with the Olympiad, which is always quite a fuss pot, then, and they'll be there with their parents, obviously, if they're very little, then that's fine, yeah, because, the sooner they play, the better the sooner they'll get comfortable. Because the most important thing in any tournament is being comfortable while you're playing, being able to operate properly. And,
Yeah. Was it more challenging to establish a routine for Olympiads with it being a team event?
well, of course, when I started, we had two reserves. So, sometimes you didn't play. I remember one Olympiad, Murray Chandler dropped me for the first two rounds. He was our captain at the time, basically in order to enrage me, which he did. And I was enraged at the enemy rather than at him, or at least the fire went onto the enemy, which was quite a good idea.
Right.
We did have quite a lot of rest days. If you were board 6 and your captain was ruthless, you didn't play very much. I mean, you did things on rest days. Of course, at that stage, you could go in and out of the venues and things, so it's very different. But certainly, there was one Olympiad in the early days of ChessBase where my database got corrupted. So I knew the data. I'd worked out the data structure of ChessBase by then. So I spent a day writing myself a recovery program so that I could recover my database, which was probably not ideal.
Jeez.
Well, I could do that at the time. I can't now because I can't see. But I mean, at one point I spent several months teaching myself to code and teaching and finding out what the database structure was. And it wasn't that hard to write something which could recover most of the games in the database once you knew what the signature was. But yeah, I did that once, which was probably
It
not the
still
idea.
sounds stressful.
Yes, quite fun, but quite stressful. It would have been better if the database hadn't corrupted itself. And of course, that was before you had things like memory sticks, so you could just go to somebody else and say, please, can I have your database? Copy their database and stick it back on your machine. Because that was, until you had recent modes of data transfer, it just wasn't possible.
And John, before I let you go, before we started recording, we were discussing this documentary. Thanks to Jonathan O'Connor on Twitter for sending it to me, called Grandmaster Clash, about the 1988 Olympiad.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend listeners who haven't seen it checking it out.
It is fun. Yeah. It's by Stephen Fry, who is said is very famous in England, not so famous in America, who's a comedian basically and an actor and a polymath. And he interviewed Nigel Short and myself before one of our matches, and they did this documentary on 1988. And at the very end, they have me dancing after the Olympiad like a mad thing, which is fun. I don't mind at all. I had a lot of tension to blow off after, a fortnight of playing chess. And the more energy you can blow off, the better, really. Because, it's healthy.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. But you say you get a lot of comments about that, about the dancing at the end.
Surprised how bonkers it would be. But obviously, anybody who is a strong chess player has a lot of energy somewhere. And the question of whether it manifests itself physically or mentally is, a question of time. And I would say that, anybody who does anything well is going to be hyper at some level. It's just a question of when you manifest it. Obviously, when you're doing the thing, you have to be focused entirely on what you're doing. And then later you build up this immense tension.
Yeah, what you're able to release. Although there's some release at the Bermuda party as well, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this wasn't at the Bermuda party, actually, the dancing that they recorded.
Ah, okay.
I think it probably was. So it might have been halfway through. I can't think when else I would have danced. No, because it takes a lot of energy. I don't do it. A lot of energy to get me from static to moving, and I think it would have been
Right.
a lot of alcohol and a lot of eventually exploding. Yeah, no, I think they do slow the Bermuda Party.
Yeah.
It is one of the important. Uh,
They did last time.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, surely in Budapest.
And one other story that's and again, I definitely recommend listeners check out this documentary. I'll link to it. But one other story that's presented is 1988, of course, was also sort of the coming out party for the Polgar sisters, which is presented as one of the stories. And obviously, there have been a lot of coming out parties for top young talents at Olympiads over the years. But were you aware, like, how do you remember seeing the Polgars at that? This was the one in Greece, I believe.
I remember that Bulgaria played, yeah. And there were the three of them in Ildiko Mardel. And I don't think she played more than once, poor thing, the whole Olympiad, which is a bit unfair, really. She was a perfectly good player. But, yeah, I do remember that. I think England played them. Was it 1988 when Margaret Thatcher was defeated in England? I think it was, in which case that was definitely the Olympiad when we played the Polgars. I know. And we got splattered, of course.
Okay.
It just there are two different things which I happen to link. I could do that. I mean, I could quickly do a search if you want, but I remember us playing Bulgaria as it was, really, and yeah,
Bulgaria. That's funny.
Well, that's what we called it. I mean, because of course Judith stopped playing in women's tournaments soon afterwards, and quite rightly, really.
Yeah.
I don't think Puya Fan really plays in them now, does she? Really?
No.
No.
And maybe someday Bodana will go down that path.
Well, we'll see. She'll have to improve, but yeah, of course. You know, she's 8, so God knows how strong she'll be by the time she's 13 or 14. We shall see.
And is she getting a lot of attention in England?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Of course she is, yes. In this country, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, obviously you would if you played in the World Under-8 Championship and won all the classical games, all the rapid play games, and all the blitz games against your contemporaries, then you must be a bit special. But she did. You know, she's played in the 4NCL and things, and it's tough. But
well, John, before I let you go, it's kind of silly, but I feel like we should make predictions so that we can be proven wrong. So it sounded like you think either India or US is most likely to win in
I
the
think that's
Open.
pretty clear, yeah. India or US. Well, on ratings US, but as you say, India is younger even than the US, well, much younger, which helps, and probably pretty cohesive, I think. I think as a group, although they're very, very closely rivalrous when they're playing against each other, as a group, I think they'd be knit very, very close-knit. So I'd say they're probably the favourites. The women's, I don't know. I mean, that's less clear, isn't it? Because there's no huge...
Yeah, so beyond India, the second seed is Georgia. The third seed is Poland. And then...
What about Armenia in the men's? Of course, Armenia's lost Levon, hasn't it? So it's not... Because Armenia always plays hugely above its weight.
Yeah, they always have a good Olympiad. They're the 17th seed. Martirosyan, Sargsyan, Hovhansen, and Gregorian.
And somebody else. And well, you know, the Armenians are always much stronger than the sum of their parts. But I don't think they'll be strong enough against those like India and China and the USA. You know, the fact that they're beyond the sum of their parts doesn't mean that they can achieve so much overachieve as to win many matches against them or not lose many matches. So I think they'll probably be in the top 10. I certainly hope England are in the top 10. In the men's, I don't know what the seedings are on the women. Georgian women, pretty strong, yeah. that they're a very good team. It just depends.
Yeah.
There are a lot of decent teams. I mean, depends. You say Ukraine, the Mujichuks aren't playing this time, if I pronounce them correctly. That makes a big difference.
Yeah.
That's a huge difference.
Yeah. And the U.S. women's are the 7th seed.
Right, so they don't have the top. Do they have Arena Crush and people like that, or maybe not?
Yeah, Irina Krush, Carissa Yip, Alice Lee.
That's still quite strong, isn't it?
And Golcom.
Yeah, that's they could do. I mean, it's not so clear to me. Okay, so I would definitely, if one were betting, which I don't, I would bet on either India or the USA or China. Those three, I think, are clearly the best three teams. And we shall see who does best. It depends on the matches between them and whether they drop a draw somewhere or, heaven forfend, a loss.
Yeah.
Hopefully
we get...
How many rounds is it? 11 now rather than 13?
Yeah.
It used to be 13, of course.
And hopefully we get some big showdowns and some nice Magnus games, etc.
Yeah, nice Magnus games. Of course, if Magnus went on a roll, I suppose Norway could, but I don't think they're really quite strong enough. If you put Magnus plus that lot against a team of the Indians, I think they're unlikely to beat them. Okay, so we'll see, and it's something very much to look forward to.
Yeah, and thanks so much for sharing your stories and your insights, as always, Jonathan.
It's absolutely a pleasure. And, yeah.
Okay.
Whenever you like. Okay, cheers then.